2 years ago, my junior honors class read Long Way Gone, Memoirs of a Boy Soldier by Ishmael Beah. It's a factual account of his childhood in the Sierra Leone and how everything was taken from him at age 12 by the local guerrilla wars. He was drafted into the state army by age 13, where he was made to inhale a mixture of cocaine and gunpowder, watch Rambo movies, and given an AK-47. He doesn't know how many people he killed during the years he fought, though he distinctly remembers how it felt to witness such death. Beah was eventually rescued and rehabilitated, adopted by a woman in New York, and sent to the United Nations school there. Upon publication of his book, he began giving lectures around the world about his experience. My juniors loved the experience of reading the book. They were shocked at the images of war that such young boys witnessed. One student came to class, slammed the book on my desk, and exclaimed, "Damn it, Miss Miller, I can't stand to play Call of Duty anymore." Even the students who valued playing their favorite video games involving soldiers strategically maneuvering through various wars could no longer find joy in the violence of virtual killing. One of the passages they found particularly shocking involved a woman running from gunfire, her child strapped to her back. As blood ran down the back of the woman's legs, she realized her baby had been shot. Kneeling, she unwrapped the baby, whose frozen expression still held a smile. The woman was in shock and could not cry. Perhaps because the students found the story so compelling, they couldn't stop discussing the details and came up with the idea of inviting Ishmael to speak to their class. Knowing our small district wouldn't have the money available, I emailed his publicist anyway and sadly reported that the $15,000 required for his visit was just too much. Luckily, the publicist also said Beah was set to speak at Ohio University in Athens the following month, so I then emailed the director of the program hosting him. She said I could bring my students to his lecture, which was unfortunately scheduled the same night as the St. Joe basketball tournament. I could only take 7 students since most of the class was involved in this locally important game. When the program director found out, she invited us to a private reception with Beah before the lecture. Neither my students nor I had any idea how much of an honor was about to be granted us. The bus ride to Athens was like most other field trips. The students chatted noisily about teachers, their friends, movies, etc., and it wasn't long before they started singing songs. Their excitement mounted as we neared the campus, but it wasn't until we entered the room where the reception was to be held that my students were calmed. Those invited to this reception included Ohio University President Roderick J. McDavis and his wife, Deborah, 5 faculty members, 5 Ohio University honors students, and my students from Chesapeake High School, who enjoyed the opportunity to dress up a bit and mingle with such a distinguished group of professors and scholars. Having the opportunity to talk to Ishmael, shake his hand, and ask him questions was such an exhilarating experience. Most in the room found it difficult to believe that the soft-spoken Ishmael, with such a gentle voice, could have been a vicious killer. Brooke Galloway, one of my students, remarked, "It was a really moving experience. It was mind-boggling that he had gone through that and looked like any other person." By the end of the reception, Ishmael had autographed each of our books, all first editions. The lecture followed, and as my students quietly found seats in the lecture hall, I was surprised that they didn't brag about their opportunity to meet Beah. They were quite reserved, their behavior possibly subdued by listening to Ishmael describe the smell of gunfire or the sadness of his loss. Attentively, they listened to the author recount stories of his childhood. He told the audience he wants people to know he has wonderful memories of his village and family before the war. Beah described his experiences during the war as well as the story of his rescue. By the time we boarded the bus, we were all much quieter, unable to let go of the images of bloody battles and surrounding death. After being on the road for about an hour, a boy said, "You know, Miss Miller, that was pretty cool you got us in that reception. I kind of doubt I'll ever meet someone like Ishmael again." Back at school, the rest of the class eagerly listened to the description of the experience. Together, they came up with a plan to design a t-shirt to sell in order to send money to Ishmael's foundation that helps to rescue child soldiers in war-torn countries. The shirt, which read, "My shirt made a difference in Sierra Leone. What did your shirt do?" sold well, and we were able to send $1,500 to the Ishmael Beah Foundation. A local newspaper story about our shirts caught the attention of Marshall University professor Nikki Thacker, whose ESL students were also reading Long Way Gone. She brought her class to Chesapeake, and all the students participated in a book discussion. It was a rare opportunity for kids from Chesapeake to converse with those from Turkey, Japan, Korea, China, Tunisia. Ms. Thacker and I arranged for small groups, each with students from both Chesapeake and Marshall. I had prepared mine to lead discussions and construct questions, as several of the Marshall students were still struggling with English. Later, several of the groups said the Marshall students were asking more questions about what it's like to go to an American high school than questions about the book. One of my students said, "We tried to keep them talking about the book, Mrs. Miller, but they kept asking about other things. It was so frustrating." Throughout the process of studying Ishmael's story, I was very proud of my students' enthusiasm, respect, and mature behavior. Following this whirlwind project, they asked me, "What are we doing next? Who will we meet now?" I didn't have the answer, but I was sure the story of a child soldier who was rescued from the Sierra Leone and found his way into these students' hearts would be long remembered.